America's in a bit of a pickle right now, from our creaking supply chains to cyber threats and a stock market doing its best impression of a roller coaster. It's a lot. And that's before we even touch on the whole running out of places to store the diesel fuel we desperately need. But before you crawl under your weighted blanket, how about we unpack this situation together? Hit that like button and subscribe because, frankly, misery loves company. Remember the before times when you could waltz into a store and buy whatever your heart desired? Those days feel about as distant as Blockbuster's DVD return policy. Our supply chain, the intricate system that gets everything from that artisanal hand soap you love to the microchip powering your smartphone, is about as reliable as a politician's promise. Major ports are clogged with ships like a bathtub drain after a particularly hairy cat grooming session. Businesses can't get the materials they need, leading to production delays and price hikes. Remember the great toilet paper panic of 2020? Yeah, that was just a taste of what a truly broken supply chain can do. Remember when you could buy a gallon of milk without needing to take out a small loan? Pepperidge Farm remembers. Inflation, that unwelcome guest who shows up to your financial barbecue and eats all the chips and dip, is wreaking havoc on our wallets. Prices on everything from groceries to gas to housing are skyrocketing faster than a SpaceX rocket. The official inflation rate is bad enough, but for everyday essentials, it feels like we're living in some dystopian game show where the price of bread is a constantly spinning wheel of despair. Remember that time a bunch of teenagers hacked Twitter and made Elon Musk tweet about giving away Bitcoin? Fun, right? Well, imagine that. But instead of teenage hijinks, it's a hostile nation shutting down our power grid or holding our financial system hostage. America's critical infrastructure, our power grids, banks, hospitals, they're all vulnerable to cyber attacks. And it's not just about stealing your data anymore, it's about sowing chaos and disruption on a massive scale. Think about it, no power, no internet, no banking, it wouldn't be the apocalypse, but it would definitely feel like the pre-show. Remember those empty supermarket shelves I mentioned earlier? Well, buckle up, Buttercup, because it might be about to get a whole lot emptier. Our food supply chain, the intricate dance of farmers, processors, distributors, and retailers that puts food on our tables, is facing a perfect storm of challenges. Climate change is wreaking havoc on crop yields. Fertilizer costs are making farmers consider a career change, and let's not forget those pesky supply chain issues that keep popping up like a bad penny. Remember when America was the manufacturing powerhouse of the world? When made in the USA meant something other than overpriced nostalgia? Well, those days are fading faster than a pair of cheap jeans. Our manufacturing sector, once the envy of the world, is stuck in a rut. We're not making things like we used to, and what we do make is often more expensive than its foreign counterparts. Remember when filling up your gas tank didn't feel like mortgaging your future? Ah, simpler times. America, the land of SUVs and drive-thrus, is facing an energy crisis. We're talking about a perfect storm of factors, from aging infrastructure to geopolitical tensions to our insatiable thirst for fossil fuels. That's left us vulnerable to blackouts, price spikes, and a whole lot of uncomfortable questions about our energy future. We're essentially running on fumes, both literally and figuratively. Remember when the only thing we had to worry about at the Capitol was accidentally running into a tour group? Yeah, those were the good old days. America, the land of the free and the home of the easily triggered, is facing a growing risk of civil unrest. Political polarization, economic inequality, and a general sense of unease are creating a tinderbox of tension. It's like we're all crammed into a pressure cooker, the heat is rising, and someone just forgot to set the timer. And it's not just about protests or riots. It's about the erosion of trust and the creeping feeling that things are coming apart at the seams. Remember when we thought COVID-19 was just a bad flu season? Ah, sweet summer child, you were so naive. The pandemic, that uninvited house guest who just won't take the hint, is still here. New variants are popping up faster than conspiracy theories on Facebook. Our healthcare system is strained to its breaking point. And let's not even get into the long-term health effects that we're only beginning to understand. We're in a war of attrition with a virus, and frankly, it's winning. And the worst part, we seem to have forgotten how to fight together. Remember when a mild hurricane season was something to be grateful for? Well, those days are gone like the glaciers melting at an alarming rate. Climate change is no longer a distant threat. It's here, it's angry, and it's brought its A-game in the form of extreme weather events. From scorching heat waves to devastating floods to wildfires that make Dante's Inferno look like a bonfire, Mother Nature is serving us a heaping plate of consequences. And the worst part? We're only just getting started. We're playing Russian roulette with the planet, and the only way to win is to stop pulling the trigger. Remember when your retirement plan involved something more than hoping to win the lottery? Yeah, those were the days. The stock market, that fickle beast that reacts to good news, bad news, and sometimes just the sound of its own internal organs digesting, is in for a bumpy ride. After years of unprecedented growth fueled by cheap money and a healthy dose of irrational exuberance, reality is setting in. Inflation is soaring, interest rates are rising, and investors are getting jumpy. And the worst part, when the market crashes, it's not just the wealthy investors who feel the pain, it's everyone. Remember when owning a home was a symbol of stability, not a risky financial gamble? Yeah, those were the days. The housing market, that roller coaster that never seems to fully stop at the bottom, is teetering on the edge of another bubble. Fueled by low interest rates, pandemic-induced demand, and a severe shortage of inventory, home prices have skyrocketed to levels that would make even the most seasoned real estate agent blush. But what goes up must come down, and when this bubble bursts, it's going to be messy. Remember when the only thing we had to worry about from Russia was election interference and bad vodka? Those were the days. The conflict in Ukraine, a geopolitical earthquake that's shaken the world order, has brought the U.S. and Russia closer to the brink of conflict than we've been in decades. With nuclear weapons pointed at each other like a tense game of chicken, the stakes couldn't be higher. And while direct military confrontation remains unlikely, the risk of miscalculation, escalation, and unintended consequences looms large. We're in uncharted territory, navigating a complex web of alliances, sanctions, and military posturing. The only certainty is uncertainty, and that's a terrifying thought in a world armed with weapons of mass destruction. Remember when the biggest threat from China was cheap knockoff goods? Those were simpler times. China, the rising superpower with a chip on its shoulder and ambitions to match, is rapidly becoming America's greatest geopolitical challenge. From trade wars to military buildups to cyber espionage, the two countries are locked in a high-stakes competition for global influence. And as China flexes its muscles in the South China Sea and eyes Taiwan with increasing interest, the potential for conflict is growing. We're witnessing a clash of titans, a battle of ideologies and economic models that will shape the 21st century. Remember when the Federal Reserve was just that boring institution that controlled interest rates? Well, those days are gone like a dollar bill dropped in a hurricane. The Fed, tasked with the unenviable job of steering the U.S. economy, is facing a dilemma of epic proportions. Inflation is raging, the job market is tight, and the recovery from the pandemic is proving to be more fragile than a Fabergé egg in a mosh pit. One wrong move, one misstep, and the whole house of cards could come tumbling down. They're essentially trying to land a jumbo jet on a runway made of dental floss while juggling chainsaws. And the worst part? Even if they pull it off, there's a good chance we'll all feel a bit queasy afterward. Remember when a recession was something that happened to other people, like bad haircuts or embarrassing family reunions? Well, those days are about as distant as your childhood dreams of becoming an astronaut. The U.S. economy, that lumbering giant with feet of clay, is teetering on the edge of another recession. Inflation is soaring, interest rates are rising, consumer confidence is plummeting, and the stock market is having a nervous breakdown. We're staring down the barrel of a perfect storm of economic headwinds. And the worst part, this time it feels different. It feels like the hangover after a decade-long party fueled by cheap credit and unsustainable growth. So there you have it, America's greatest hits of impending doom. It's enough to make you want to invest in a bunker and a lifetime supply of canned goods. But before you do, take a deep breath. Panicking won't solve anything. Ignoring the problems won't make them go away. We're facing unprecedented challenges, but we've also overcome incredible odds before. The first step is acknowledging the problems. The second is talking about them. And the third is, well, that's where it gets tricky, but we'll figure it out. We have to. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go stock up on batteries and bottled water. And maybe that bunker isn't such a bad idea after all. Don't forget to share this video with your friends and family. They deserve to be just as informed or perhaps equally terrified as you are.